the Detroit Red Wings, always one of my favorite teams to track in the draft, and this year was no different. And they are still a team that's drafting quite a lot of players. They drafted 7 in this go-around, and I think overall they did a pretty decent job and added to one of the biggest stables of young players in the entire league. Leading the way, they drafted Carter Bear at 13th overall. I had him ranked 12th. There's a really exciting power skill forward here. I'm not sure he's a center at the next level. I'm not sure he's the player that thrives the most in an open ice situation, taking command of possessions, but maybe it's a worthwhile experiment moving forward. The wing position really benefits his style of play. He's evasive along the boards, he's physical, he's resilient, but he powers his way to the net off the boards really well. There's a really nice forechecking presence here with Bear as well. I would love to see him ramp up the physical energy even more from here. He's got the pace in his game. He's got the size to try it more. It just was something that came and went a little bit. The energy in his game was a little bit fluctuating, and that's okay. But I do think that there is a lot more to unlock in Carter Bear's game that at the pro level hopefully comes out more. I liked this pick a lot. He wasn't the best player available for me in this range, but being realistic about all of the players that I had ranked in this range, he was probably going to be gone pretty quick at this point, and there were some players I had ranked pretty high that I felt pretty confident would be available later. Having met him as well, really fun person, and at the end of the day, if all else fails in hockey, he has a future career as Batman or something with just the way that he talks, because there's a fun voice actor style personality there. Really competitive player, really enjoy watching him play, and I've said that for the last 2 seasons. Eddie Genborg was their next pick at 44th. Eddie Genborg is a player that, yes, scored a lot at the junior level this year, and I thought he looked pretty decent at the SHL level this year. Wasn't the best player at that level of all of the ones that I saw in terms of looking comfortable, good with his puck possessions, and maybe driving a little bit of offense, but Genborg is certainly a hit machine. He is a physical, energetic player who just loves to pound you into the board, pound you into the ice, and just make an example of you. This is a really physical player. I don't think there's a huge amount of upside with him. The skill level and the puck control, I think, are areas of improvement from here. The overall pace of his game kind of slows down a little bit too quickly for what I think is projectable. But for a guy who can complement these more on-puck players, I think he's a decent option. I'm not sure he's a top 2-line guy, but as a solid bottom 6 physical energy dude who can go to the net, keep it simple, generate a little bit of offense in that way, I could easily see it. At 75th, they drafted Michael Pradell, who is a goaltender out of Slovakia who came to the US for a bit this season and had a really good under 18, and I have really liked what I've seen of him. I know there are some goalie people out there who do really like Pradell's potential, and the Detroit Red Wings have done a decent job finding some goaltenders over the years, at least in a developmental sense, and we'll see where it goes with Pradell. He has a variety of potential outcomes in his career right now. He might be a guy who you leave in college for a little while and you see what happens, but based on his athleticism and size and the results he's generated so far, I could see a good college defenseman here, and we'll see where it goes. At 109th overall, the Detroit Red Wings picked Brent Solomon, who is a high school player who got a pretty decent run in the USHL towards the end of the year. He's a player that's always stuck out when I've watched him for just the skill level in scoring areas. This is a guy who is really lethal once the puck is deeper into the offensive zone, really good mid-range shooter, really goes to the net and tries to make things happen with a pretty good skill level in those chaotic situations. I do wonder about his on-puck play outside of the offensive zone. His play in transition was a little bit limited, but there's a decent pace to his game. There's a good skating ability, really good fluid footwork to keep up with the flow of the game. All around a really intriguing offensive upside pick. I don't know if he'll work out quite enough as an NHL player, but as a college scorer, I could absolutely see it. There are some things about his game that I did really like, and he was on my list for very large portions of this season. Intriguing offensive upside bet. There's good goal scoring instincts. He knows where to go in the offensive zone, especially on the puck. He knows how to get into scoring areas and really is an offensively focused player that I think is worth betting on, and you give him some time in college and you never know what could blossom out of here. There are things about his game that are definitely standing out, so I am all about this pick. Then at 119th, the Detroit Red Wings drafted Michael Spurchek. It didn't really surprise me that Spurchek went this late, but this guy I love. I had him a spot higher than Carter Bear, if anyone is unaware. I think this guy is awesome. Energy. A big reason why the Florida Panthers were so successful is because you look at a guy like Evan Rodriguez, for example. Not the biggest guy in the world, not the meanest guy in the world, but he's intense. He's physical. he's got skill, and I think Spurchek has the potential to do the exact same thing. He is a little bit soft on his feet right now, but you only notice that he's soft on his feet because he's trying to play bigger. He is all over you all of the time off the puck. He is a relentless energy machine, but he also has a level of skill and finishing ability that I just fell in love with this year. Of all of the players that played in the SHL this year and were draft eligible, he was the one that looked the most comfortable, especially off the puck. And the things that he didn't necessarily do that well on the puck are things he does well at junior hockey levels. So adjusting to the higher pace of play and the higher energy of the SHL, there was a little bit of panic moments, really great puck carries up the ice, but as soon as he crosses the blue line, he's putting it on net, or he's tracking a loose puck along the boards and he catches it near the blue line and just pops it on net. So those little things of learning how to slow things down a little bit, get a quick look, make a decision, try to penetrate a little deeper in the offensive zone while not going 100 miles an hour, I think that's an area to improve that Michael Spurchek could really benefit from. At the NHL level, I really do believe in the importance of competitiveness and energy and just being a thorn in the side of your opponents when they have the puck on their stick. And if you can make a play, if you can set something up in the offensive zone, if you can get to the net and really generate some stuff, that's a real benefit. And I think Spurchek brings all of the tools to the table that I think could really benefit an NHL team. I really urge you to go watch the scouting report on him, because once this kid hit the SHL this year, he didn't leave for quite a while and they used him decently often. This was not a player who was used for 30 seconds or a minute and a half or 2.5 minutes once every month in the SHL. This was a legitimate player at that level, and I know that the team really likes him as well as some of the other young guys that they were playing this year. I'm not gonna say it's the steal of the draft right now. Maybe an LJ Mooney could be that as well, but I guarantee you when you watch him play at the highest levels imaginable, there's a lot of comfort there and there's a lot of potential, and I really do believe in this guy. Regardless of where he plays next year, I will be watching. Then they drafted Nikita Tatar at 140th. Tatar is one of these players who gets around the ice really well. He's got a bit of skill to him as well, but just hasn't put it together to really take over a shift or a game, in my opinion, a lot of the time. But there is something there with him. There's a nice foundation as a defenseman. Nothing too fancy at either ends of the ice, but just very efficient, really good foundation with a really good talent base at both ends of the ice that you can really bet on. And long term, this is a development case that might turn out to be something more than where they drafted him. I don't know how long it'll take to get there, but this is an interesting toolsy defenseman that I totally can understand why a team would draft him in this range. At 172nd, the Detroit Red Wings drafted Will Murphy. He is another one of these 6'4", big, tough, heavy defensemen who gets around the ice okay. When I watched him after the draft, there was really nothing that stuck out to me where I'm going, okay, that's what this guy is going to move the needle in the NHL doing. Outside of just being that physical presence who is there and playing that physical style of play, he didn't really strike me as a guy that would be a defensive shutdown guy in the NHL. But I imagine most NHL teams drafting players like Murphy don't think that way either and go, if we develop them well and things come along and 5, 6, 7 years from now, we need a defenseman who's on Grand Rapids that could use a job. Maybe it's Will Murphy. I don't know. There's just not much I can say that goes, this is why you draft this guy late, that isn't just big, physical, and okay moving around the ice for a guy that size. And then at 204th, Detroit ended their draft in a very interesting way to me with Graden Robertson Palmer. Robertson Palmer is a player that I didn't see a whole lot of because prep school video is not the most accessible out there, but he was one of these players who, when I did look through some prep school players, usually there aren't any that really move the needle for me and I go, okay, yeah, this is definitely a guy I want to target. But Robertson Palmer was probably the one that I was at least a little bit interested in. Really, I think this is a high upside swing, and you leave him in college or the USHL in between for a while, but I think you could end up with, at the very least, a very fun to watch, skilled offensive college player. He's not the biggest guy around, and it's really hard to tell at the prep school level the physical resilience tools that you need to play at the NHL level. But at the end of the day, you still do see a very talented young player here. That much is on display for sure. He's very inside driven, he's aggressive, with the puck on his stick. He's fun to watch. He's got some good pace in his game. It's just a matter of a good pace in his game when he's playing in prep school hockey. I think it's a fairly interesting bet to make towards the end of the draft. I didn't have him ranked, but there was a couple of days there where I was watching some video of him going, this guy's kind of neat, there's something here. But of all of the players that were excluded from my list by the end of the year, Robertson Palmer was always one in the back of my mind where I kind of went, we'll see if he gets picked because it could be interesting. And Detroit seems to have a pretty good developmental structure. You can be patient, and I like the pick. It's an interesting one. So for me with Detroit, I'm giving them a 2A. Again, rock solid start to finish. A ton of really, really good swings here. And I do think a lot of these players have a really safe floor. Carter Bear, maybe he's not a first-line winger, but a middle six, 200-foot power winger. Eddie Genborg, maybe more of an off-puck focused third-line physical presence, fourth-line guy. Pradell and Turin and Robertson Palmer are interesting bets to say the least. Will Murphy, I didn't see much there, but Michael Spurchek could be really one of the gems of this draft for Detroit if things go right. I think there's so much that he brings to the table with regards to energy and showcasing it at one of the hardest levels of hockey in the world already at 17. I have a lot of belief in him, and I've really liked what I've seen out of him, especially playing against men, and to me, I value that a lot. That's going to be it for Detroit. A solid 2A, another strong draft class with potentially some really good value picks here, and some personal favorites of mine. A quick note before we finish today's video, I just wanted to mention, we are at 9,600 subscribers, give or take. Getting to 10,000 before next season would mean the world to me. So if you are not subscribed, which about half of our viewers aren't, I would suggest subscribing because I'm biased, but we have some good content coming, and our live shows twice a week are really fun. We get to talk about hockey, we talk about whatever else you want, we can talk about the time I ate an onion, we can talk about the future of the sport, we can talk about the current state of the NHL, and we just try to have some fun a couple times a week, and it's always great to see people come by. Thanks to everybody who already is subscribed. Let's get to 10K. That's a nice little project for us to do now. And with that, we're going to call it. If you liked the video, definitely like and subscribe. If you really liked it, definitely consider a subscription over at Scouching.ca, where you can get access to all kinds of fun data tools and our Discord server and plenty of other fun stuff that you're just not going to find anywhere else on the internet. So check that out at Scouching.ca. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.